The camera clicked, and Karen's world ignited. She didn't just hear the shudder, she felt it, like a gunshot aimed at her soul. In the heart of Willow Creek's famous Karen Flower Garden, where delicate pink and violet blooms swayed like a painter's dream, a war was about to erupt over a single photograph. Karen, yes, that Karen, with her sun hat tilted like a crown and her voice sharp enough to cut glass, had been waiting for this moment. Not for beauty, not for peace, but for control. The garden was her kingdom, and today, a tourist named Mia had dared to trespass on her unspoken rules. Mia, a quiet 20-something with a backpack and a battered cannon, had come to Willow Creek chasing a dream. She'd read about the Karen flowers named for their fragile beauty, not the stereotype, and wanted to capture their fleeting bloom for her photography portfolio. She wasn't looking for trouble, just a perfect shot. But trouble found her when Karen, self-appointed guardian of the garden's sacred vibes, spotted her kneeling by a flower bed, snapping photos. To Karen, that camera wasn't just a tool, it was a weapon, stealing the garden's soul and her own fragile sense of authority. "You're ruining it." Karen's voice sliced through the morning calm, startling a flock of sparrows. Heads turned, families, gardeners, a park ranger named Tom who was already rubbing his temples. Mia froze, her lens still aimed at a cluster of petals. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft but steady, the kind of tone you use when you're not sure if someone's yelling at you or the air. Karen stormed closer, her flip-flops slapping the dirt path like war drums. "You're trampling the flowers. You're exploiting this place for your stupid Instagram clout," she spat, her face redder than the roses nearby. Mia blinked, confused. She hadn't stepped on a single petal. Her shoes were firmly on the path, her camera barely brushing the air. "I'm just taking pictures," she said, standing slowly, her hands raised like she was calming a wild animal. But Karen wasn't an animal you could calm. She was a storm, fueled by a lifetime of small slights and a need to be heard. "You tourists think you can waltz in here, snap your little pictures, and leave us locals to clean up your mess," she shouted, pointing a manicured finger at Mia's chest. The accusation didn't even make sense. Mia hadn't littered or broken any rules, but logic wasn't Karen's currency. Control was. Tom, the ranger, was already jogging over, his radio crackling. He'd seen this before. Karen wasn't a stranger to Willow Creek's staff. She'd been banned from the community center for yelling at a barista over decaf, and the garden was her new battleground. "Ma'am, let's calm down," Tom said, his voice firm but tired, like he'd recited this script 100 times. Karen rounded on him, her eyes blazing. "Don't you ma'am me, Tom. I'm protecting this place. She's the one breaking the rules." Mia, still clutching her camera, looked between them, her confusion morphing into frustration. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, her voice louder now, a spark of defiance igniting. "I paid for my ticket. I'm allowed to be here." The crowd was growing, kids holding ice cream, couples whispering, a groundskeeper pausing his rake to watch. Karen thrived on the audience. She stepped closer to Mia, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss. "You think you're special because you've got a fancy camera? You're nothing but a leech, stealing our beauty for your pathetic little life." The words hit Mia like a slap. She wasn't here for clout or fame, she was a student, scraping by, chasing a passion. But Karen's rage wasn't about Mia, it was about every time she'd felt ignored, every moment she'd craved respect and gotten none. Mia was just the target. "Back off," Mia said, her voice shaking but firm. She stepped forward, closing the gap between them, her camera now a shield. The air crackled with tension, like the moment before a lightning strike. Tom wedged himself between them, his hands outstretched. "Both of you, stop it now," he said, his patience fraying. But Karen wasn't done. She reached out, shoving Mia's shoulder not hard, but enough to make her stumble. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mia caught herself, her eyes wide with shock. "Did you just touch me?" she asked, her voice low, dangerous. That shove was the match that lit the fuse. Mia, usually soft-spoken, felt something snap. She'd spent her life avoiding conflict, swallowing insults, but this was too much. "You don't get to bully me because you're having a bad day," she shouted, her voice echoing across the garden. Karen flinched, unaccustomed to pushback. For a moment, she looked almost human vulnerable, caught off guard. But then her face hardened. "I'll have you thrown out," she screamed, turning to Tom. "Do your job. Arrest her." Tom's jaw tightened. He'd had enough. "Karen, you're the one causing a disturbance," he said, his voice like steel. He pulled out his radio, calling for backup. "You've been warned before. This stops now." Karen's eyes widened, her confidence cracking. "Me? I'm the victim here," she protested, but the crowd wasn't buying it. Whispers turned to murmurs of agreement with Tom. Mia, still shaken, stood her ground, her camera clutched like a lifeline. The situation spiraled as two more rangers arrived, their presence calming the crowd but escalating Karen's panic. She started yelling about her rights, her voice a mix of desperation and defiance. "This is my garden. I've lived here my whole life," she cried, as if longevity gave her ownership. Mia, meanwhile, was explaining her side to one of the rangers, her voice steady but her hands trembling. The crowd was split-sided with Karen, claiming she was just passionate about the garden. Others saw her for what she was, a bully who'd picked the wrong fight. Then came the moment that sealed Karen's fate. In a final act of defiance, she grabbed a handful of Karen flowers, ironic, given their name, and threw them at Mia's feet, screaming, "Take your stupid pictures and choke on them." The crowd gasped. Even her supporters fell silent. Defacing the garden was sacrilege in Willow Creek. Tom's face darkened. "That's it," he said, nodding to the other rangers. They approached Karen, who was now screaming about lawsuits and her connections. But her words were hollow. The rangers escorted her out, her voice fading into the distance like a siren winding down. Mia stayed, shaken but resolute. She didn't take another photo that day. The beauty of the garden felt tainted, the memory of Karen's rage lingering like a bruise. Days later, the story hit local news. Karen had been fined $500 for harassment and public disturbance, a small price for some, but for her, it was a public shaming. The garden's community board banned her for a year. She'd lost her kingdom, not because of Mia, but because of her own inability to let go of control. The aftermath was bitter. Karen's outburst sparked debates in Willow Creek. Some called her a victim of a woke world that punished passion. Others saw her as a cautionary tale, a woman who let entitlement consume her. Mia, meanwhile, left town with her photos undeveloped, unsure if she'd ever return. The Karen flowers still bloomed, indifferent to the drama, their petals catching the light as if nothing had happened. In the end, the garden stood as a mirror to the human heart, beautiful, fragile, and easily trampled by pride. Karen's story wasn't just about a fine, it was about the cost of letting anger define you. Mia's wasn't just about survival, it was about standing up, even when your voice shakes. The clash left no winners, only lessons carved into the earth like footprints on a path. What do you think? Was Karen a protector pushed too far, or a bully who got what she deserved? Share your thoughts on where justice lies in this messy, human conflict.